What's up?
I was looking for you tonight. I don't know if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but if you have some free time, I thought maybe we could get some dinner.
Are you serious?
Okay, let's all go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 281, and it is week 2 of Cage-A-Palooza 2024. This week, I have coming on the show from the Botched Podcast, it's Phil Keating. Phil, how are you?
Travis, man, thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure and a fun time whenever we get together. And I'm excited to talk about this Nicolas Cage romantic comedy romp.
So our movie this week is 1995's Leaving Las Vegas. This is the movie that won Nick Cage his Oscar. And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was kind of a romantic comedy romp. I knew very little about it other than it's what won Nick Cage the Oscar. It's just one of those that was a blind spot for me. I had heard it was really good, but that was all I knew about it. So I didn't know. And for a long time, I did conflate it a little bit with Honeymoon in Vegas because that came out, 3 years earlier? And that was also Nicolas Cage.
So, yeah.
Is that where he's the Elvis impersonator?
That's Wild at Heart.
Okay, that's Wild at Heart. Some of those blend together, but I would conflate this and Honeymoon in Vegas. But I knew this. Then I learned like this is the one where this was the more critically acclaimed movie. But that's all I knew about it. So kind of went into it a little bit blind. Did read he's an alcoholic who goes to Vegas to drink himself to death, and he meets Elizabeth Shue there, and that was it going into watching this movie. So before I talk about what I thought of it. What is your history with this movie in terms of like when did you first see it, and sort of go from there?
The first time I saw it was about 3:30 in the afternoon yesterday. Travis, I have no history with this movie.
Okay.
I know that this movie is kind of like you. His award-winning Oscar award-winning performance. Everybody always has it in their top 5 of Nicolas Cage movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got around to it. I'm not a big Cage person, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Cage films that I enjoy are kind of his down on his luck, offbeat kind of things.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, everyone, this was not the original movie I picked. I threw a late game audible because I feel like, not only it's time for me to watch it, but I looked through your whole episode list and you didn't watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to bring it to the table just because I knew it was going to be rough, and holy moly, it was rough.
Yeah. I got a few minutes into this and I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay. And I thought that I had an idea of what movie I was watching in those first 10 to 15 minutes, sort of that cold open, which it was funny because I didn't even register that we were in a cold open until the credits started 20 minutes into the movie. And then as the movie kept going, I realized I did not know what this was going to be. And I was not really prepared for the movie that I was watching at all.
That cold open for me was really an eye opener. And it really it was in that first 10 minutes where I knew exactly what kind of movie we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of wrenching for me because, to be honest with you, it held a mirror up to my life. There was a part in my life back in 2021 where that was me. I was going through a divorce. My work was on the verge of firing me, and if they would have, who knows? But I literally was trying to drink myself to death. I was severely unhappy. I was in a new living with a new roommates and just kind of isolated myself from the entire world. So like to watch him go through each like quote unquote segments of his life,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, running into people at the bar when they're just trying to enjoy dinner and you are inappropriately drunk. Yeah, I've been there before, right? Having that meeting with my boss, completely drunk. Yeah, I also had that. Wandering the streets or pushing a cart in a in a liquor store, just filling it up with whatever I could afford. Yeah, dude. So right off the bat, I was like, "All right, bud, buckle up, man. This is going to be a rough road for you." And it was, man. It was really it was hard to watch, but also it was kind of good for me at the same time because like I'm not there anymore, right?
Mhm.
If anybody knows me, man, I struggle with depression. I struggle, when I do get low, and I do get low, alcohol is always the first thing that I grab for because that's kind of like my mediator, and it has been from like a very young age. Um, but I can look and stand now on Philip from like 2021 and like be like, I don't know that guy anymore, right?
Mm.
I figured out different ways to kind of deal with my depression, and I have stopgaps along the way so that I don't ever get there again.
Right.
And luckily now, like I have a good close circle of friends that are like, will always check up on me if they see one hint of like, hey man, you might be spiraling. Let's sit down and talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
oh
that's
man,
good.
it was, man, like because like what I do, like when I go low, like I do full isolation, right? People trying to help me, no, I'm fine, man, don't worry about it, even though I'm like completely dying inside.
Mhm.
So those first 10 minutes are just like, so that's what I looks like. Oh, all right, cool, let's go.
And
So
that is a unique perspective that you have watching this that I don't have. However, I can empathize. And when I was watching, this movie fell into the category of movies where I'm really glad that I saw this.
yeah,
I am not in a rush to watch it again anytime
never
soon.
again, Travis.
Um,
Travis, never again. Like this might hit the pantheon of, oh yeah, I saw that, and I'm never gonna watch that again. It's gonna sit right up there next to the Green Mile, right? I don't ever need to watch the Green Mile again for different reasons, but I
mhm.
never have to watch this or the Green Mile again.
Yeah, because like this is an amazing piece on like character where you're getting an arc without really a change in the person
Yeah.
somehow. Um, but there's a lot going on from start to finish for him and for Elizabeth Shue. I completely get why both of them were up for Oscars for this because she was up
Yeah.
for the Oscar for best lead actor, lead actress, and he won for best lead actor. And holy crap, they're both just amazing. I mean, I've said this for a long time. I think Nick Cage is a really good actor. He makes choices, and sometimes those choices don't work, but he's always making choices. But I think he brings something compelling all the time. But this was him really bringing a lot to a character and a lot of uh, realism. There was like an honesty in his performance here that really hit
And I
me.
and I'm surprised that Elizabeth Shue didn't win. And I didn't do any research, so I don't know, who beat her out for that role. But to be honest, for me, I thought Elizabeth Shue was the one carrying the acting between the two of them.
Oh, she
Um,
carries all the emotion in this. So,
yeah.
real quick, here was who was up for best actress in a leading role for that year. So it was Elizabeth Shue for
Oh
this
yeah.
movie.
And I'm going to tell you who won just by these names.
Okay, Elizabeth Shue for Leaving Las Vegas, Meryl Streep for The Bridges of Madison County, Sharon Stone for Casino, Emma Thompson,
Oh.
Sense and Sensibility, and Susan Sarandon,
Ugh.
Dead Man Walking. So who do you think won that year?
Probably what was it? Sharon Stone in Casino?
Sharon Stone was in Casino, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would either say her or obviously Streep, because Streep always wins.
It was Susan Sarandon for Dead Man Walking.
Damn, no joke.
But boy, that is like
Yeah,
that.
those are some heavy hitters up
Yeah, it
there at
is.
a title match.
and Elizabeth Shue standing toe to toe with him because she is
Yeah,
so good in
100%.
this.
And it also hurt to watch Elizabeth Shue in this movie. Like, she was
did.
probably in my top, one of my childhood crushes.
Oh, same. One of my notes
from
was
back.
one of my notes watching this was like I had such a crush on her because I loved
Yep.
Adventures in Babysitting, but for me the one was The Saint with Val Kilmer.
Okay.
She was in that, and I just really enjoyed that movie, and I loved her in it. But watching her in this, there's so many moments in here where she is doing ridiculous amount of acting without saying a word, and there's so much emotion on her face, and it's just heart-wrenching what's going on. There's a lot of that period in this movie, but she really does several times in it. And then this broke my brain for a little bit as I'm reading about the movie. The solo scenes where she's talking to somebody, I had notes in there. I'm like, man, so I'm wondering who this is, like who this therapist is she's talking to, or who this person is she's talking to about her relationship, and how, like, are we going to, is that going to get paid off at some point? I keep waiting for it and waiting for it. And then that's how the movie ends, is with her talking to this person, but we never see who it is. And then I read that those scenes of her talking were from her makeup and wardrobe tests. And so this is according to the trivia, so grain of salt on it, but all of the solo scenes of Sera speaking to either herself, an unidentified person, therapist, whomever it is, the film never tells us, are actually Elizabeth Shue's wardrobe, hair, and makeup tests that were shot prior to production. Director Mike Figgis used them in the edit because he felt they strengthened the narrative of the film against the initial wishes of the producers. That,
interesting.
If that is true, and I want to believe it is, that's crazy, because those are amazing moments.
It's literally like it's some of the only times in this movie where it's just pure affection of like gratitude and love without a circus happening behind it.
Yeah.
But I gotta believe it, because this whole movie was shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't have a big production. They had a shoestring budget. So, if you I had to believe like any footage that was shot at all was brought to the editing bay and just, where can we fit this in? Because, she's pouring her heart out. But that also makes sense why we never have, the reverse angle on who this person she was talking to is.
Yeah. And in a way, I like that they don't pay that off, because we don't need to know who she's talking to. Early on, I was like, ooh, I wonder if this is going to, who is it? And then by the end of the movie, it didn't matter anymore. It was just her getting this out about this relationship and what happened with her and Ben. And it was amazing.
There's actually a couple things in this movie that don't have payouts or payoffs, and I don't feel bad about it. Right.
Oh yeah.
I always hate being spoon-fed anything. And there's just a couple, threads that kind of just came to a dead end, and I get to make up, my own storyline of kind of what's going on this, B story that we have no idea that's going on about, man. It's just, oh man.
You're referencing opinion, Yuri, right?
I'm talking about Yuri because we also, at first when Cage is coming into Las Vegas and he's at the gas station and you see these guys, across the pump from him, right? And you got to think at some point those characters are going to have some sort of interaction, right?
Yeah.
Either, Cage and Yuri, or the Hitman, which I'm going to guess, or Cage, or anything, right? And it just never kind of develops.
Right.
Even though, it's like, what the heck was that movie? Do you remember the movie from the 90s, Go?
Yeah.
Where it's like 3 different storylines and they tell the whole, So, somewhere out there in my own headcanon, there's a whole nother storyline that's happening. in this city that doesn't ever, sleep.
Right.
Man, it's great. And I also like that they decided to show the grimiest side of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I
Which
love
is
it. Which
it's
is very early 90s, 80s-esque Vegas. It's
yeah.
just like, man, this is this is 100 years away from Blade Runner almost, about how gross and dark this city actually is.
Yeah, and it's funny because last week when we were doing Gone in 60 Seconds, which is like the other end of the spectrum in Cage movies, right? That's the fun popcorn summer type movie that's lighthearted and there's nothing difficult about it. But JF and I talked about how it never portrayed LA as the glitzy, glamorous Los Angeles. It was like, LA looked dull and boring and not interesting really in any way. And so then you flip it around and we're watching this and it is, and I was just in Vegas a couple months ago, and usually when you see Las Vegas in a movie, it's Ocean's 11, right? You're seeing the
Yeah.
strip and the lights and all that. And this is like the other side. This is all the dirty, grimy, greasy, icky parts of it. Even when they were in places like the casinos, the way they shot everything, you barely saw the casino floors and they didn't make it a big thing. It was like a lot of tight close-ups. And I love the scene where he flips out playing blackjack.
Oh, we'll get to that because I got a thing to reference for you. It dawned on me right away. So like once we start breaking this film apart, man, I got something good that you might agree with.
Excellent.
But in my opinion, just the overarching thing of leaving Las Vegas, like it shows you the struggle of dependency.
Yes.
Right. And how we can get dependent on almost anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
What am I dependent on? I'm dependent on caffeine, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't talk to me unless I have my coffee, right? I get codependent with friendships and partners, right? It's something that I try to actively work on, but I know that there's always going to be a little bit of codependency on me. And so like watching people deal and struggle with their own personal dependencies, if it's alcohol, if it's money, if it's sex, if it's gambling, it was very raw. And when the film finally ended, it came upon me that like this is a 90s requiem for a dream.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the 90s independent requiem where we're just going to show you, these cliche character types acting uncliche like and just watching them kind of self-destruct.
Yeah.
And, I knew, like I said, right after the preamble of the beginning, I was like, there's not going to be a happy ending to this. There's no way we're going to get out of this and ride off into the sunset. And
Yeah.
so like when it finally ended, I was like, yep, Aronofsky really really has Figgis to thank for getting this movie off the ground. And I know Requiem was a book, and so was this,
Mm-hmm.
which also has a very dark history with it. But yeah, that was my thoughts. It's just 90s Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to put it. You're right. And yeah, at some point early on, I realized we're not getting a happy ending, and it still hits so hard the way it went down, the way the ending happened. Was both I don't want to say predictable because that sounds bad, but I could see that that's where we were heading to, but it still was just a big gut punch. And the way it happened, the just kind of with a whimper.
Yeah, and there was a couple scenes that was like, oh geez, I know this is happening, I know this is gonna happen, and I know this is gonna happen, and sure as heck it happened. And like, even though I mentally prepared myself, it was just like, yep, this is brutal. This is really brutal, and I knew this was gonna be brutal.
And you use the word raw, and I think that is the perfect word to describe what this movie is. It is raw. It does not pull any punches. It doesn't hold back, and it's very open and vulnerable. Like Ben is a vulnerable person while also shielding everything under the alcoholism. But
Yeah.
there's those moments like when he's with his boss, the way he says "I'm sorry" to him, that killed me. Um, and him when he's talking to her and telling her like, "You can't ever ask me to stop drinking,"
Yep. Oh, jeez, Louise.
and her reaction to it was
Yeah.
the reaction that needed to be there for this relationship to happen, because she understood what was going on with him and how, but she needed him. Her dependency was him and that anchor he had for her. And so she was willing to do whatever needed to be done to keep him around, uh, which makes her kicking him out at one point so hard, and you can tell. And Elizabeth Shue just delivers on that moment. Like I can't sing the praises of Nicolas Cage and Elizabeth Shue enough in this movie and how good they were, start to finish.
But also that feeling of loneliness, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah,
I've felt it a lot in my life, and somehow like she was able to invoke that feeling in me, right? Even though I have a partner and I have a loving circle, it's just like I've been there. I know how it feels. And like when you're in a loneliness spiral, it feels like, you're always 6 feet away from reaching the cliff to pull yourself out.
yeah.
And like she got me back there as I watched it with my girlfriend. Like, oh man. So
yeah, it was a lot. And
yeah.
and they do have those weird side stories like Yuri. So Yuri is her pimp, I guess.
Yeah.
Is
So
how I
that's
kind
what
of understood it.
I thought of it as well, right? They from what I'm guessing from the small dialogue that they had, uh she worked for him in Los Angeles
Mm-hmm.
and then ran to the desert, and he was able to track her down and continue to have that power over her.
And I really thought that was going to be much more of the movie, was Julian Sands as Yuri and sort of that whole end of things. And it didn't, that ended really early in the movie, way before I thought it would. And not kind of the way that I thought it was going to go. But that was interesting to me to sort of dangle, because that feels like real life, right? That doesn't feel like a script for a movie. That feels like something that literally happens, where you think this is where it's going to go, and then nope, none of that was really important. It is important, but it wasn't going to drive the plot of the story that we're watching unfold. Which,
Yeah, and the chemistry between the two of them, man, it's like there's that one shot where it pans from, because she's laying face down on the bed, and it just dry pans up to her face, and just the full-on disassociation,
yes,
almost spiking the camera of disassociation was just like, again, just like, man, it was almost just like, not almost, it was complete jarring to me. Like this is like, and I kept flashing back to like Back to the Future 2 and 3, and it's just like, oh, why are we doing this?
Yeah, oh man,
And
it's
I was
always
surprised because did Yuri and Ben have a single interaction with each other? I don't think they did.
They had one. And it was in the pawn shop. So Yuri was in the pawn shop.
Oh, that's right.
With his ruby ring, and he's trying to get all the money
that's right.
Best I can understand it, Yuri owed money to those mobsters. We saw Cage, we see Ben run into, or see the mobsters on his way into Vegas. One of whom was Paul Figgis, the one staring at Cage with the sunglasses on. That was Paul Figgis, which was great. But Yuri owes them money, so now he's like desperate. That's why I think he found Sera, and he had her, turning tricks to get money for him. But he's in the pawn shop when Ben walks in and pawns his 93 Rolex Daytona for $500. And I looked it up, and the retail value on that was well into the 5 figures, like $20,000 used.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably about 45,000.
Probably 40 something thousand these days, but he's selling it for
Yeah,
$500, and he doesn't care.
which is odd, right? Because like it seemed like he came out to Vegas with a good amount of cash, right? He said it was going to take him a month to drink himself to death.
Mm-hmm.
He sold his car. He had a luxury motel room. So I was also trying to think, like, why are you going to? Well, okay, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, when one of the steps of once you're finally accepting that you are here to die is just to get rid of all your possessions. So at that point, $500, who cares, right? That's an extra 5 to 3 bottles of alcohol.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's right. I forgot that whole pawn scene because it only lasted about 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's not really long.
Tops.
And that's all the interaction. And at that point, I'm still thinking this is going to be a bigger thing, right? He's going to somehow make some connection between, like, there's the connection between Yuri and Sera is going to get figured out by Ben, and there's going to be something going on there. And it just didn't go there. And the next time we see Yuri is in that hotel room when Sera comes back with a bunch of cash, and he tells her to leave and that you won't see him again. And I noticed too, he's fully dressed but barefoot, which is kind of a visual thing of like preparing for death.
Yeah.
So then when she leaves, and then as she's walking out, we see the mobsters coming the other direction. I was like, oh, all right. Well, I guess Yuri is really done. And to the movie's credit, it doesn't matter. Like, we know what's happening. We know what the mobsters are going to go do and what's happening to Yuri. So we don't need a scene depicting any of that, which means they don't have to like spend time and budget to shoot any kind of a struggle or anything where, you know, they have to do anything in that room. We can just infer all of that ourselves, and Yuri's just out of the picture now, and Sarah's on her own. So Sera now has nothing. She has no ties at that point. And
but that's also life. Like, I mean, and that brings it back to the point of this movie. It's just like, there's always another story that, like, you know, we'll never know what we cross paths with because we all kind of run on our own timelines. And, you know, it's where this movie kind of is at its best, is just giving you, you know, two ships in the night kind of going past each other. And that's the realism of like the struggle of this movie.
Yeah. Yep. So we mentioned Nick Cage and Elizabeth Shue. There are a bunch of great like cameos and side characters in this. There was so many
right off the bat too.
Like, okay, Julian Sands was one, which he was a great actor. I loved Julian Sands. Like, he was one that was just, he was always kind of interesting to me in a movie. And it's really sad what ended up happening to him, because I don't know if you heard or not, but he went hiking in the mountains of California and disappeared, and they couldn't find him for 6 weeks or something like that. They were searching, and they ended up, you know, he ended up being found, but sadly didn't survive. But he was a great character actor. But right off the bat, we get Steven Weber and Richard Lewis.
A beautiful 90s Richard Lewis.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh, just.
And I thought we were going to have more of him. Just like,
Same.
Oh, great. Richard Lewis is in this movie. This is going to be, you know, maybe it's his, you know, a brother that he's, you know, upset with and going to have to deal with. No, it's just, here's money, man. Leave me the heck alone.
Yeah. Yep.
And then that's it.
Valerie Galino as Terry. I like her. That whole scene in the bar where he's Ben is hitting on the girl.
Yeah.
I may have captured part of that when we get to clips. We'll discuss that. But Valerie Galino and Graham Beckel was the bartender. And Graham Beckel I've seen in a lot of stuff, but he's burned into my brain from LA Confidential. So anytime I see him, I think of him as Stensland. But he's the bartender there. I loved his interaction, right? Because he's like trying to be the bartender. It's like, look, dude, it's 10:30 in the morning. Maybe you don't need another drink. And then he's like, whatever, fine. You do what you want. I don't care. Like,
yep.
He was great. Arlie Ermy has a cameo in this. I almost didn't recognize him.
and I didn't recognize him. I didn't recognize him at all.
It's the beard.
Even
It's so
I
weird to
know
see him with a
it's
beard.
completely. I've never seen it. Normally, even cartoon roles, he's always yelling at people, and I know him distinctly from his voice.
Yes.
But to see him kind of just sitting down with a beard and and his ring, is just like, okay.
Also,
Didn't
seeing
expect that.
seeing Arlie Ermy with a beard is like seeing Sam Elliott clean shaven. Something
Yeah, I
doesn't
was just
feel right there.
yeah. Oh
Um,
man.
but he's in there. You got French Stewart, a baby French Stewart shows up.
So
I don't think he even
I
has a
missed
line, does he?
I don't know, because I knew after, right, when I pulled up the IMDb that he was in it, I couldn't put a face to it at all. And I watched a lot of Third Rock from the Sun, and I just couldn't figure out who he was in this movie.
So he's credited as businessman number 2 in the scene that introduces Yuri and Sera in the hotel room. He's the other one
with the
with
interesting.
yeah. And I mean, he's super young. This is like the year after I think he did Stargate, but he's not French Stewart that you think of with like the squinting and sort of the caricature that he became. He's just a guy in this. But that was one of those that was kind of crazy to see. Mariska Hargitay.
Okay, so this one screwed me up. This one was just like, wait, what? No, what? No, whoa. So, okay, I'm gonna say this. I love Law and Order SVU,
Sure.
and like binge watchable for me. If I'm folding laundry all day, you bet your sweet butt I am watching back to back to back, because they used to play on TNT all the time, right?
Constantly.
So like
yeah.
days off, we would all just sit down and watch SVU. And so like Olivia Benson and Mariska Hargitay, man, there is no separation for me. Like they are one and the same.
Yeah, especially when you do a role for that long, right? She's been Olivia Benson for like 20 years, so it's hard to think of her as something else.
And well, we did see her as something else, as a sex worker. And so like to see her as a sex worker, I was like, in my own head, it was just like, obviously she's undercover. Like this is they need help in the Law and Order Las Vegas department. So she's definitely undercover doing a case right now.
It was also interesting because I saw her early on, and then I thought, oh, that's going to be it. Like that's the cameo. Because it just felt like that. And then for her to come back at the end of the movie, I didn't expect.
To be the woman that got Ben thrown out of the apartment. Yeah, I didn't expect that either. I just thought it was going to be her at the blackjack table or what was it, craps? They were playing craps, I think.
Yeah, they were playing craps.
Roulette. Yeah. I thought, oh wow, okay, that's Mariska Hargitay. But no, you're right. I didn't expect her to come back at all. But as soon as I saw her back at the casino or the bar, it was just like, okay, he's definitely going to bring her home because he's upset that Sera is out again working, and Sarah's going to come home and they're still going to be there. And we
get to have that wonderfully awkward moment.
And then, oh man, like obviously, and that's another storyline that we don't get, right? Is that obviously Sera and her have some sort of history, or they've ran into each other since they're both sex workers in Vegas. So like, I just curious on like that backstory that we're never gonna get.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that has a lot of those side story backstories. It's like I could watch, a 30-minute short on that one, or a whole movie on this one, and I love that because it makes the world that this movie exists in feel more real. To have all of those intertwined pieces and these little threads here and there that you're like, ooh, that's interesting to me. Like, what's their history? Because the way Mariska Hargitay's character looked at Elizabeth Shue the first time when she was talking to Arlie Ermy, you're like, yep, there's some history there. And I figured that was going to be it. And then for her to come back and be the one that she walks in on, like, oh, whole lot of stuff. Danny Houston was the one bartender.
Danny Houston. I don't know if I know that actor.
So it is Angelica Houston's nephew, I want to say.
Okay.
And also John Huston's grandson. He was in 30 Days of Night. He was in unfortunately X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I see that he's
He's been in a
Striker.
lot. But he, he's somebody that I do like, and it was kind of cool to see him just sort of show up real quick. This is kind of early in his career. But the one that threw me the most was Laurie Metcalf as the landlady.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why, like, of all of the cameos in this, all of the small parts, there's something about Laurie Metcalf, and just, she was great. She's being funny without being funny. She's really good at that, but she just, like, I just didn't expect that. And I don't know why, because she was
Yeah.
all over the place in the 90s. She was in a lot of stuff.
Well, but also this is a very like almost unknown director, right? He had a couple films after this that I've heard of, but like this wasn't like your top of the line director,
Yeah.
top of the line script dude. All I can believe is like they were, they approached these actors with the script, and the actors realized like, oh, this is a gem. This is something that doesn't come around that often. And this is something completely different than what's being made right now, in
Yeah.
95.
It
And so
feels
like
like this feels like one of those, like, Figgis. I think his biggest movie prior to this was probably Internal Affairs. But he feels like one of those sort of always going to be an independent movie guy, and this feels like one of those kind of actors movies, right, where like a script gets passed around and somebody who knows somebody's like, oh, you should check out this script, and they're like, yeah, I want to be in that. Like, this looks really cool, like that kind of thing, where it doesn't have broad appeal, and it doesn't get a studio behind it, a big studio behind it, but the people that hear about it are like, yeah, I want to work on that.
yeah, and you would think that after this movie came out with all the nominations from your Golden Globes, your Academy Awards, that like studios or other people would kind of start throwing bigger projects at him, and he never really had anything after that that was like, a groundbreaking staple, right?
Yeah.
This is his magnum opus. This is
Hmm.
his baby, and it's I have to believe like that's his decision,
I really
that
feel
he's like,
like it. Yeah.
no, I don't want to do that. I don't want all this money because I want to make the movies that I want to make. I don't
Yeah.
want to make the movies the studio wants me to make.
Hmm. Yeah, like he did. I remember, I don't think I ever saw it, but I remember hearing about his movie Time Code from 2000, which dealt with basically like four different frames in one, sort of all happening at the same time. It was like a weird kind
Oh,
of it was a weird, like, something extra going on there. And I remember hearing about that movie, had no idea it was the same director. But you're right. I'm with you. I think that him not doing those types of things were a personal choice. Like, he wanted to keep making his movies.
and it's funny because I do recognize a lot of the movie posters of his other movies because I worked at Blockbuster for so long,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
This movie Hotel that he did, it's a horror thriller from 2001, and it's got Selma Hayek, uh, David Schwimmer, Lucy Liu, Burt Reynolds, John Malkovich.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever heard of it. Nobody's probably is, we have a handful of people that actually saw it.
Hmm.
And all I remember is all his box art sitting in the middle section of Blockbuster and being like, all right, those are some heavy hitter names on that box.
Yeah. The last two cast members I wanted to mention, because Xander Berkeley is the cynical cabbie that picks her up after her
Yep.
night with
Oh
the
my
college
god, I
kids, which
really wanted to. Oh, I wanted to kick him right in the throat, like
he is
right in the throat.
so good at that type of character too. There's some
I
he's
know, it's just
like, he's probably, by all accounts, a lovely person, and I'm sure he's great to, like, chat with and hang out with and all that, but he is so good at being that just cynical asshole that says the wrong thing all the time. And he's just got that kind of smarmy face to him too. And I love Xander Berkeley because of that. Like he's just
man.
But you're right. You just want to just drop kick him in the throat.
It's just like literally, dude, like you see she's got bruises on her face. You see that her neck is cut. It doesn't matter what her line of work is. Like it's still a human, man. Like
Yep.
just literally, if you're not comfortable taking her anywhere, take her to the police station, take her to the hospital, take her anywhere she wants to take her to be taken to, and just shut up and do your job, dude.
And this was the point where I almost couldn't keep going in the movie. When that scene before that with the college kids is unfolding, and I was like, "Oh, movie, we're gonna have a rough time here. I don't know if I like what we're doing." And it thankfully cuts away.
Yes.
And so it doesn't make it any better. Doesn't make it any it doesn't make it easier. But at least I didn't have to. The Figgis did not need to have, kind of like talking about the scene with Yuri and the gangsters. We didn't need that scene to know what was going to happen. We didn't need to see the scene play out to know what it was going to be and how bad it was. And I appreciate that.
And well, yeah, I mean, obviously me too, but like even the scene before that where they approach her as she's walking home.
Yeah.
Like I knew knew right there that there was going to be a brutal sex scene. You know what? A brutal rape scene with these three assholes. I knew for a fact. And it was just like, I spent that 15 minutes or 10 minutes, like just mentally preparing myself and just having literally a pillow to clutch and put in front of my face. Cause it like, this movie was already brutal. And you're right, man. I was so thankful that like, you're just like you said, like the Yuri scene that like, hey, we're going to show you just enough, but not enough for you to have to watch this. And for me, Travis, the more brutal part was the silent scene in the shower.
Oh,
right.
100%.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm never going to watch this movie again, Travis, but I'm going to constantly think about this movie, like constantly. And it's probably not going to leave my brain for a good 20 years because that's how much of an impact, like little scenes like that of her just crying motionless in the shower as blood goes down the drain. It's just like,
and
sorry.
This is an example of, this was a quote that I heard, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it basically was, art is meant to make the comfortable uncomfortable, or the disturbed comfortable and the comfortable disturbed. And this is a prime example of that, because I've had some debates recently over a couple of movies that have come out, lately, that are popcorn movies, that are summer movies, that are kind of shut your brain off and just, hey, we got some fan service and some bright colors and it's cool. And those things I think are good to have exist, because I think it's great to have that kind of escapist entertainment that you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. But then there's also the flip side of it, which is, art in the sense of creating an emotional response in you. Not always a good one, but an emotional response. And I do think that it can be important at times for us to be made a little bit uncomfortable. There's lines to it, and everybody's got their thresholds that they can stomach and take with that. I think that's why a lot of people like horror movies, because you want to have either the ridiculousness of it or you want to be disturbed a little bit. And I think that this is a different type of disturbed, but like, that's not a bad thing. It's not bad to feel these emotional responses in something, because it can open and unlock something in you, or it can help you to deal with stuff that you have done that has happened to you in the past, or reflect on that. So just like you, it's, I don't want to watch it again, but it's going to stick with you. Right. The one movie that did that for me, I brought up in the past with people, is there was a movie called Man Bites Dog. And it was a pseudo documentary. It was shot documentary style, where these filmmakers were following a serial killer. He was a self-professed serial killer, and they were doing a documentary on him. It's fake. But over the course of the movie, the filmmakers start to bond with the guy a little bit and start to even participate in some of the stuff that he's doing. And it was one of those movies where when I got done with it, I'm like, I was watching with a couple of friends of mine, and all three of us had the same reaction of like, well, that was horrifying. I'm
Yeah.
going to go home and take about 4 showers, and let's never watch that again. But I still think about it. It stuck with me because it created those emotional responses. This is that type of movie. Monster was another one. Monster with Charlize Theron was
Monster.
one.
For me, it's and you probably have seen it. You got a good repertoire of movies. For me, it was the movie Gummo.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Gummo?
I
Saw
have.
Gummo once in college, man. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Never need to see it, and I can still see it inside my head.
Yeah.
I was in college in 2004. It's been 20 years, and I never need to see that movie again because it replays in my brain every 6 months for some reason.
Some things
but this
do that.
obviously this is going to stick for completely different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful that you brought me back on here so that we could experience this together. There's a couple things I want to hit on if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
That opening sequence when he is in the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
How great was it to see all those old style, like 90s paper label bottles?
Those were
right?
that was, I love the nostalgia of stuff like that. That was great. And apparently that was
Seagram's VO, Cuddy Shark, all these shitty liquors that my parents had in their house.
Oh yeah.
Like, take out the good stuff tonight. Seagram's VO, Canadian's best shitty whiskey.
Yep.
But yeah, it was great to see all those old liquor bottles.
It was. And apparently that was originally shot to be later in the movie. And Figgis was like, let's throw this right at the beginning because it's a great primer and it just sets you up for who this guy is right away. Just straight out of the gate. I love that. But yeah, seeing all those labels was just fantastic. Like, I'm like, yep, I remember seeing those. I remember none of those are good. But they're fantastic.
Yep. Yes, they are. And another thing I wanted to talk to you and point out was, how about the music? How about the score and the music in this movie?
So Figgis did a lot of the music.
Correct, because he had no budget.
Yeah.
He had zero budget. So he's like, the hell with it. I'll do it myself. And for me, it reminded me of early 70s Tom Waits. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of a Saturday Night Lounge.
Yes.
I think he was on Asylum Records at that point, right? Before the whole Ring Dogs and switching to Island Records, man.
Yeah.
With that loungy, cheesy-esque piano music. Oh, man, do I love it. Do I love that crappy music.
I really think that's my favorite Tom Waits era. Because I know, is it Mr. Saturday Night is the album? Because it's got
Part of a Saturday Night.
Yeah, whichever one that is one that I revisit all the time. Like it's a personal favorite of mine. And yeah, there was so much of that music in here, that style, and also Sting.
I know,
and
right?
That was another one I read. Figgis was a friend of Sting's. And
interesting. I was wondering.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. That's why I kind of looked this one up. And apparently, they were friends, and he asked him to do a couple songs for the soundtrack. But the producer didn't like Sting. One of them didn't, and so they were like, "No, we don't want that." And so Figgis was like, "Okay, cool. I got an alternate for you." And he said he had written an opera in German that was about death, and he was going to sing it. And she was like, "All right, fine, you Sting." And that's another one. I want that to be true because that's awesome. That's such a good way to do it. Like, oh, let me give you the worse option, and then you'll love having Sting in this movie. And that music, it was perfect. All of it just hit those right notes, and the era of it and sort of the feel. We talked about that kind of the idea of this Las Vegas that isn't glitzy and glamorous. and that music felt like the down and dirty parts of Vegas
Yeah.
in music form. So yeah, it was
And
so
they
good.
snuck a Don Henley song in here.
They did.
And I do, you know what? I am with the dude on this one, and I know this is a PG, so I'm gonna, or PG-13, so I'm gonna take my one curse word. I fucking hate the Eagles, man. I fucking hate the Eagles.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm,
But that
mhm.
Don Henley song, okay, you got me, Don.
Yep.
You got one. You got one on me.
you win this
Which
round.
is funny because the Eagles also covered Tom Waits at Old 55. It
Yeah.
was a Tom Waits song they covered. So yeah, man, it's just, I was really, really happy with this music and how the music also scored up perfectly to what was going on in
Mhm.
each different scene. I don't normally Shazam songs during a movie, but that Don Henley, I was just like, okay, this one's a kind of a banger. Let's see who it. Oh shit, it's Don Henley. All right,
Why did it have to be Henley?
why'd it have to be Henley?
So you were curious what I would capture as audio. And I got a few
Yeah.
things. Some of them were a little weird. Some of them were just like really poignant moments. The first one was right out of the gate when Cage is, Ben is walking into the restaurant, and there's Richard Lewis and Steven Weber's character sitting there with the two actresses. They're talking about whatever movie they're working on. And I just, for whatever reason, this line from this girl just tickled me.
I think the nicest thing about the film actually is that we get to handle guns, and I had never done that.
Like that was what she took away from the movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and at this point I'm still thinking, yeah, we're kind of in some sort of a lighthearted romp. Like it's gonna get heavy, but it's gonna be like I was originally thinking even something like your kind of Robin Williams style drama, right? Where it's like there's comedy involved. Cage is going to be goofy, alcoholic Cage, but it'll get heavy at some moments. No. That's not what we had at all. It was a lot darker than that. But that one made me laugh. I also loved. This is when he's hitting on the girl in the bar, Terry. First,
Oh man.
So
luckily for me, like during my like dark period, man, that was never kind of my thing. So like while I was drunk at the bar, I was always just too sad to like make an ass of myself in front of somebody I was trying to take home.
Yeah.
And that was just so cringeworthy to watch. I'm excited to hear it again.
I labeled this as flirting.
Question mark?
So that's this.
You're so cute. And I'm really good in bed too, believe me. And you smell great. And you look great. Your hair's great. No? Okay.
It's that ending part. He gets the look from her and she's like, no, all right. He realizes it's not working at all. But then when she gets up and she tells him like, maybe you need to stop drinking.
Stop drinking.
And he just responds with, as she's walking out, because he's got to have that last one, right? Like this is the drunk in him.
Maybe I shouldn't breathe so much, Terry.
Which means I get to have this on my soundboard now forever, and that's
one of the two sounds I hoped you captured through these.
I mean,
so you are 1 for 1 so far, sir.
Look, Cage is the gift that keeps on giving with weird sounds.
Yep.
Like you never will get tired of those. This one this is the bar guy I was talking about earlier. Same scene, but this moment was when the first realization I had of, ooh, maybe this movie isn't what I originally thought it was going to be, and I'm in for a completely different ride. Because he looks at him and he says,
please serve me today, and I'll never come in here again.
And I was like, oh, okay, we're going in a different direction.
But also the bartender's response, I can 86 you whenever the heck I want.
Yeah. Yep.
Take your drink and get out of here.
Yeah. Oh man, this one got me. I had a note about when he's meeting with his boss. So he's got the scene in the bar is rough. It's hard to watch. But then when he's meeting with his boss, and his boss tells him, "Look, we got to let you go. You know how it can be." And for him to say,
I'm sorry.
the way he said that, I was just like, I just wanted to give him a hug. Just want to be like, it's going to be okay, buddy. It's going to be
It's just
okay.
like, and that's what it is. I mean, we say for a reason that toddlers are just drunk adults, right?
Mhm.
Drunk adults act like toddlers, man. And that's what it was, man. It was like apologizing to his father for, for
Yeah.
breaking a lamp or
Mhm.
something small, or dropping a glass of milk or water. Like, I'm sorry. And just his boss being like, we really enjoyed working with you.
Oh, there
But
was twice in the movie that somebody did something like that. Though we really enjoyed working with you. Like, that's the I'm not mad at you, I'm disappointed.
yeah.
And that was killing me. And
Yeah.
then later on, when they break the table and the lady at the hotel out in the desert comes up to Elizabeth Shue with the big old smile on her face and basically tells her to screw off and don't even pay for anything. We just want you gone, through a smile. Like, it would have been
That
less.
is a Midwestern get the heck out of here.
Yes. And it would have been less hurtful if she had yelled and screamed at her and was like, no, you're going to pay for all, like, no, it was the like killing her with kindness without it really being kind. But
Yeah.
oh, that was so tough.
And oh man, it was. And letting them know, like, hey, look, I don't see you as humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are rodents that have come in from the desert, and you need to go back out.
Mm-hmm.
Garbage. Possums.
Speaking of that scene, when he falls on the table, we get
Oh my god.
which was great.
2 for 2.
Okay.
2 for 2, Travis.
So you were hoping I got the whoops. Yep.
Whoops! Oh! And it has that Krusty the Clown, like,
yes. Followed up by,
I'm like a prickly pear.
I love when
Yeah.
he does weird half accents. Like when he's talking to the guy in the biker bar, whose girlfriend comes up and hits on him.
Oh, and he gets all chivalrous.
Yes, he gets all chivalrous and he starts doing that like pseudo English accent thing that he does. I love that because it's just,
Man, that scene too.
Also, you know who
Like-
that bartender was, by the way?
He looked familiar, but I couldn't place a name to him.
Okay, here's why he looked familiar. It was Julian Lennon. It's John
John's
Lennon's son.
The
Yeah.
musician?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Don't-
that was my reaction.
I don't want to turn this movie back on.
You don't
Is it
have
really?
to. You don't have to, but it was Julian Lennon.
Oh my god, it is.
It was just crazy.
Okay. Wow.
I know.
But also just like, hey man, like, you gotta leave because we don't allow fighting, but I know you got your ass kicked, but you also gotta leave.
Yeah. Ugh.
I think the quote of tonight is just, oh man.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yep. I also, so when he's in the pawn shop, I just liked this delivery.
$500 for a 93 Rolex Daytona. I'll do it.
I'll do it.
Travis,
That's
have
it.
you ever pawned anything?
I have. And it's never an easy thing to do. But
I've only pawned one thing in my life, and I still feel guilty about it. I was down, and I was in my early 20s,
Mhm.
and one of the local churches was getting rid of their not a pipe organ, but a pump organ.
Okay.
And like they called me up and they're like, hey, we know you're a musician, you got a band, do you want this? Free of charge. And I was like, hell yeah, I want that pump organ. It works. They're like, yeah, it works perfectly fine. And we used it for about 6 months, and then we were all so strapped for food
Mhm.
and strapped for cigarettes and strapped for alcohol that we had to pawn off this poor church organ. Of course, for not the money that we should have,
Right.
well, that we believed we should have, gotten for it.
Yeah.
But somewhere in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, somebody is a proud owner of a Lutheran church pump organ via Philip D. Keating.
Well, hopefully it's at least in a good home.
Yeah.
This was a moment that was just heartbreaking, but I had to capture this, and it's this.
You can never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
And he's so sincere in that, and she knows it, and she understands it, and that was, that one hurt.
But very much so. But it's also setting up the boundaries of their relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to ask her to stop working. She's not going to ask him to stop drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we both know at some point these crossroads will collide heavily.
Yes.
And it's just like, man, companionship is really important.
It is.
And you can only deal with these overarching and heavy issues for so long until the foundation of a relationship cracks and crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's two things you should never start a relationship out on is lies and deception, right?
Yep.
That's why any relationship, if it's professional or romantic or just with friends, if you go in without being brutally honest and having discussions, like, everything is just going to fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as soon as he said it, and he said it so sincerely and really straight into her eyes, I said, oh, this will become a crux at some point, and we will be revisiting this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On a completely different note, this was just a funny line, so I had to capture it.
How do you feel?
Like the cling clang king of the rim ram room.
Like, that's an ad-lib.
It's a very
right?
Cage-A land.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
Yeah.
That's 100% an ad-lib. I loved, so one of the things, and I didn't think about this till the end of it, he never eats the entire movie.
Well, okay, so let's talk about this. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, true. Dude, literally my staple, right? Because any kind of calories or food that you bring in, that I was going to bring in, right, was going to take the alcohol longer to hit my system and also soften the blow. So that was just like, I noticed that right off the bat, right? And at that point where they have dinner, right, and he has his chopsticks, right, I'm going to, instead of eat the rice, he's going to eat the ice cubes.
Yeah. Because
the ice cubes have been soaking in alcohol, and it's not going to impact the alcohol once it hits your system. Man.
Right.
Yeah, that didn't get lost on me. What? I think they went out to dinner once and had that spaghetti dinner.
Yeah, but he never actually eats any.
He doesn't eat it. Yeah, exactly. Which is just like, those are little touches of realism. Like, if you're dealing with an addict, hell no, I'm not going to eat, because then it's going to kill the potency of whatever I'm going to take.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you picked that up.
Yeah, and him picking up the ice with the chopsticks, by the way, that was just impressive. Like, I don't know how many takes that took, but I couldn't do that. And
I'm going to say it took one take.
That's my headcanon is he got it in one, because it's Cage. Yeah. It's Nick Cage. He can just
once
do that.
His DTs calm down, he can do anything.
But that scene in the restaurant where they're over the spaghetti had the great line of,
well, then this is our first date, or our last. Until now, I wasn't sure it was either.
Like, that's real good. That's
a great line.
It's a great line and a great moment. And then for her to kind of pause for a minute and be like, it's our first.
Yeah.
That was great. Let's see. I got one Julian Sands line, and I just like this delivery.
Do not come back here. I'll not see you again.
It was good, and I'm like, oh, man, he's exiting the movie already, because we're only what 40 minutes in, half an hour in,
40
something like
minutes
that.
in. Yeah.
So that I just didn't expect.
I can't believe you caught that detail that he wasn't wearing his shoes. I completely, I missed that completely.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's barefoot, but he's like, as she was leaving and walking down the hall was when it registered to me that he was barefoot sitting there, and then the other guys are coming. I'm like, oh, he's ready. He knows what's happening,
Yeah.
which was crazy. This one's called Drink It. I'm trying to remember what this is, because that could mean anything in this movie.
How's the new one coming along? I hear you got Dickie Gear and the whole bit. That is great, man. That's great.
Yeah, I got everybody in the movie. Look, for God's sake. This is all I have in cash, huh? Please, don't drink it in here. Huh?
Originally, that was the first clip I was going to use as an intro for this episode, before I found the one with him and Elizabeth Shue. But I just, that moment, again, really setting up who he is and where he is in his life. And the whole idea of like this friend of his, it's like, here's all the money I've got on me. Don't drink it here. And we shouldn't talk anymore. Like, we're done. Because it's just a quick way to figure out how low he is. And again, another subplot or backstory that we don't know anything about is his whole relationship with his ex, and they have a kid.
They have a kid, right? And I mean, I guess, yeah. There's nothing, right? We don't know any of this. We don't even know what kind of scriptwriter he is, right?
Yeah.
Or if he is a once popular, wonderful scriptwriter, right? We don't know anything. You have to believe that he's got some great script out there, because he has enough royalties to own a house in LA, and own his own car, and get into these fancy restaurants with these bigger known actors that it seemed to be. But yeah, we don't get anything, right?
No, we don't. All right, last one, and this was the final part of the movie, and this one just, it's the honesty and the vulnerability of their relationship in these lines from Sera talking about Ben. Just really hit me.
I think the thing is, we both realized that we didn't have that much time. And I accepted him for who he was. And I didn't expect him to change. And I think he felt that for me too.
And it's that last part. I didn't expect him to change. Like, so many times in movies, especially Hollywood movies, it's, I'm going to fix this person. I'm going to help them I'm going to change them, or they're going to change for me, or whatever it is. And this was a relationship where she knew who he was when she met him, and never expected that he was actually going to be anything different. And he
but that's life.
Yeah, that's right? Life. That's real.
You can't go into relationships thinking that you're ever going to be able to fix or change somebody. You can hope that they put in the work and they want to change and become a better person.
And
but
you can be that support for them.
Support, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're never going to be able to change somebody.
No. And that was
at all.
That was the thing throughout this movie, that it just felt real, because it felt like a relationship built on, these are actually two real humans, not two-dimensional characters that are going to go through an arc and be someone different on the other end. They're the same person all the way through it, but things happen to them, and changes do happen. Yeah. And I absolutely, like, that was amazing about the movie. I still don't ever want to see it again, but it was amazing about the movie.
That one scene that we were talking about where, okay, so let's just, there's one more scene I want to talk about where they decide to go out gambling, right?
Yes.
This is a big turning point for me in their relationship, because at that point she's only kind of seen him really inebriated privately. But now we're going out to the casino floor, right? And there's two different alcoholics here, man. You have your at-home alcoholic that is bumbly and stumbly and kind of crappy. But once he gets into the public eye, he kind of transforms into this whole different monster.
Yeah.
And you can really see it by the physical touch that he has on Sera,
Yep.
which was just really jarring for me because I'm sure she's been in those situations before with either Yuri or other clients, right?
Mhm.
Just way too aggressively rough.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, it was just like, oh, geez, please. Like, it was hard for me to watch that. But then that scene at the table, the blackjack table.
Yep.
Beautifully shot, by the way, up in the balcony, like it's a security guard watching the floor, right?
Yeah.
And then the waitress coming over and saying something. And this happened multiple times. And I don't know if you caught this, but this was a beautiful touch that anytime that Benjamin was completely intoxicated, everything was muffled around him.
I did.
Right? Which it happens.
Oh, for sure.
It's happened to me multiple times where everything is kind of like you're so focused on one thing that like everything else is muted around you. So I noticed like every time he was completely intoxicated, the muting of the sound around him amplified. And so once he knocks the table over, right, and throws everything around, and the security guards are rushing in to grab him, that scene when he's reaching out and trying to get to Sera, and Sarah's trying to pull the cops off, that reminded me so much of Sean Penn in Mystic River.
It did.
When the cops are trying to hold Sean Penn back about his daughter and everything.
Yeah.
And it was just like, holy moly. That movie, oh man, Mystic River, A+.
Yep.
But yeah, that just raw emotion of just like, I get the heck away from me, get me out of this place. But also, I'm completely inebriated, and I'm not going to remember a gosh darn thing until I'm reminded the next morning when I wake up with that sensation of shame.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was real, Trav.
Yeah.
And do you know what you? Oh, please.
I was just gonna say, and then to have the scene after that where he wakes up, feels that, goes into the room with her to lay down on the bed. And it's like, I don't know what happened. I remember this and this, but then what happened after that? And she kind of tells him, and like they're having that really heartwarming moment, and it again subverts the expectation of where that scene is going to go, because then he says something, and that kind of hits her, and she turns away from him, and that's when he's like, I'll go get some breakfast, and he heads out in the morning, and we did get, and because I had to write this down in a note, we got the trope of the bag of groceries with the baguette sticking out of it. You can't have a bag of groceries in a movie without a loaf of bread sticking out of the top of it. And
which is also funny because who's going to eat it? Nobody's eating in this movie.
No one's eating.
Yeah. Did you read about how Nicolas Cage got ready for this role?
By filming himself drunk?
He went to Ireland on a 2-week bender, had his friends film him so that he can get his mannerisms and his speech down, which is just like, for me, man, that would be very hard to watch.
It would be hard to watch, but also like in terms of acting research, such a good way to do it, because one of the things in acting that's always really tough is to do a thing, either be really good at something and attempt to make it look like you don't know how to do it, right? Like an athlete trying to look unathletic, or a musician trying to look like they don't know how to play something. But the other one is being drunk or being intoxicated in some way. It's almost always done to a cartoonish level. And here it is, but it's like realistically cartoonish, like this, that, which I think makes it that much harder, like much more, difficult to watch, is because, as you know, we've all, if you've drink, you've been at some point, at least once, sloppy drunk like that, and that's what it's like. So that was an interesting way to do it, but I'm with you. That would have been hard to way to do that, because I've seen video. I have seen video of myself that I have no memory of it happening, because I was
It's always
blackout drunk,
fun.
and it's a
Always
very,
fun.
very weird experience.
Yep, I've got a bunch of those, Travis. But yeah, Fish. Yeah, very, very interesting. And Elizabeth Shue kind of went the opposite direction, where she went down to Vegas and talked to a bunch of the sex workers and kind of familiar herself with a lot of the ladies down there, and I think really helped her get into that headspace of like, it's do or die out here, and
Mhm.
like you gotta survive and do exactly what you can to hope you wake up the next morning.
Yeah. I am so glad that I have checked this box and gotten this movie off that list of like movies I need to see, especially as a fan of Nick Cage and doing these August Nick Cage celebrations every year. But now I've done it and I don't have to watch it again. It will, however, stick with me. I'm with you. It's going to stick with me, and it'll stick with me for different reasons than it will for you. But like, I'm so glad that you brought this one up and we called that audible and went this route, because it's something. This is the kind of movie that I think I kind of needed to see. I needed a little bit of like a, not so much a palate cleanse, but sort of a reset. Because I've been watching some more like popcorny, fluffy entertainment lately. I needed something kind of to punch me in the face and sort of reset me a little bit and get one of those like just visceral emotional reactions out of me while watching a movie.
And unbeknownst to you, I am completely dry right now for Dragoncon. I'm taking the entire month of August off, right? So like, it was even wilder for me to sit down and watch this completely sober, and also I'm kind of really happy I sat down to watch this completely sober, because it would be so easy that when this movie got difficult to grab like a vodka seltzer, or
Sure.
just like to grab a beer, right? Oh, geez, this is heavy. Let me just grab a beer to kind of numb this out. And I'm glad I didn't, because every part of this movie was important. There
Mhm.
was not a single scene that was wasted. And like I've been saying all night, man, it's a movie I'm never going to forget. I'm happy that we called the audible, because the other movie we were going to bring is a little bit more of a comedy film, right? Oh,
Mhm.
it's a little not zany, but like one of those like dark comedies,
Yeah.
or a dramedy or and whatnot. Not this, man.
No.
This was let me Clockwork Orange you. Sit down for 2 hours. You're not going to enjoy it, but you'll gosh down think about it once you're done watching it.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And that's the beauty of film in general, but Nicolas Cage too. Like, he can do something like Vampire's Kiss, right? Which is just silly, bonkers, funny, like in a dark way, but it's that zany, funny thing. And then do this not that long after. I mean,
yeah.
there's a 6-year gap, but that's not that long in his career. Like, he makes, and this was that movie, and apparently he did this one because he had not a great experience making Trapped in Paradise, or either not a great experience making it, or just kind of it being a bit of a bomb, and he sort of wanted to reset himself and do something different. And because I feel like he would do that in cycles, right? Because right after this is when we hit Nick Cage action star era. He comes from Leaving Las Vegas into The Rock, Con Air, Face Off, Snake Eyes, right? Those movies kind of all in a row.
That's when he would have landed the Superman role too, right?
Yep, it was in that
During
same
that
era.
like that big block, that
Yeah.
rock, the rock block, as I'll call it.
There you go.
No pun intended.
And it feels like in '98 or whatever is when he did 8mm, and that was almost like him being like, you know what? Hold on, I'm gonna switch things up. I've been doing action stuff. Let me do something else weird and dark and different. Kind of, because he had done like Guarding Tess and Trapped in Paradise and those movies leading up to doing this. So it was almost like he needed sort of a system reset in his career. But that's one of the things I like about him is that he doesn't shy away from projects. Yeah, there's times where it's like, sure, he had to pay for some houses. He's got to do some movies.
He's
But he never phones it in. He's always bringing something with him. Whether or not it works is completely at your discretion. But he's always doing something. Like he's bringing it with him.
True, but also
weird.
like with this movie, like you could see how important a good script is. Yeah, you can rot on Nicolas Cage all you want, but like when he has a beautiful script,
oh yeah,
he delivers, right? And so, yeah, people say he's cheesy or a little, out there, but like. I want to see those movies that you think that about and show me the script writer or show me the script. Let me see the script.
Oh yeah.
Because he's more than talented to be the best, actor in the film.
Sure.
As long as the script is beautiful.
I mean, look at something
and
like...
I was a little...
Oh, go ahead.
Little upset that when they were playing craps, he didn't roll Snake Eyes.
Nobody
right?
did yell Snake Eyes.
I know. Well, I was so angry. Like... There was such a good cross promotion for a movie you didn't film yet to roll a Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but like to your point, a good script, something like and again another movie where he apparently had a rough time making it because they shot it in February in New York at night. But Bringing Out the Dead is a great script, and he's really good in that, and it's a very good movie. So just because he does stuff like, The Wicker Man or Season of the Witch, and he kind of goes way over the top in those, again, he's still at least doing something. And he's not just showing up to collect a paycheck. He's going to collect his paycheck, but he's at least going to give you something while he's doing it. So that's one of the things I've always loved about him. But I just love he's an honest actor. JF mentioned that last week. Like he's him. He's always Nick Cage, and he's going to do something, and his desire to do different things as well. So,
and you can't say that about a lot of actors.
No,
a lot of them don't want to take the risk in it, and I'll always give Cage a chance, and even on his crappy movies, man. And trust me, man, I like some of his like City of Angels, Travis.
Oh yeah.
I love that movie, and I know it's not great.
It's not, but
I love it.
If you think about it in terms of my headcanon on that is they shot that movie like it was supposed to be a horror movie.
Oh, my headcanon is that they shot the music video for the Goo Goo Dolls song, and they just scripted the movie around that.
Okay, that works. But go back and watch that movie sometimes and look at some of the shot compositions and tell me that's not framed and shot like it's supposed to be a weird thriller / horror movie.
Interesting. I haven't watched it since about 98, 99, so maybe I will revisit that.
Yeah, just think about that when you rewatch it sometime, because that one, it definitely looks like that. But look, Cage is the gift that keeps on giving. That's why I do this every year, and it's a whole lot of fun. And I'm so glad to get you back on here. It'd been too long. And it's always a pleasure having you around, Phil. You're great, and it was so much fun to talk about this. Now, you and I are going to be talking again in a couple of weeks because we're going to be at Dragoncon.
I know. Oh, Dragoncon.
So
what's that? What's Dragoncon?
Dragoncon is coming up. It's going to be my first year there, but you've been doing it for a while, and you're bringing Botched, right?
So yeah, this will be my 7th year at Dragoncon, and I am part of Botched, a D&D podcast. Season 8 is coming to an end, and if you're not familiar with what we are a D&D SCP podcast. Yes, those things can go together, but not well. So we will be live at Botched. Our live show kicking off season 9 is Sunday night at 10 p.m. in the Crystal Ballroom. If you are going to Dragoncon, find one of the Botch members. If you are familiar with Dragoncon, something that is really big is called badges or ribbons. They go right under your badge. Each member of Botch will be having a ribbon on them. So if you want a Botched ribbon, find one of us. And you can also, like Travis said, find me back on Wait You Haven't Seen, the Dragoncon edition, which I'll just leave at that for the moment.
Yep. It's going to be an epic conversation. That's all I can say. I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
And you'll have to either go to Dragoncon or you'll have to hear the show afterwards to find out what we talk about and how it goes. But can't wait.
A preamble for all you listeners. I can wait. Me and Travis have been arguing about this for about 4 months now.
Yep.
About the movie we will be watching. I told him, first I told a lot of people, no, I will never watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And then within 24 hours, Travis was like, hey, I kind of want to watch this with you. And I was like, you're the only person that I would do this for. You understand that, right? He's like, oh, yes, I very much understand what I'm doing. I said, gosh darn it. Okay. So that will be streamed live, Travis.
Yep.
It will be on the DC Digital Media track on Twitch.
Yes, it will.
So once those schedules are announced, just check out twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. And you'll see our lovely faces around Labor Day weekend.
And if you're at Dragoncon, you can come and be in the room with us. It'll be Friday at 8:30 in I think it's Ballroom 6. I think is what it is.
Yes, Galleria 6.
Galleria 6,
which is in the basement of the Hilton.
Yep. Come down with the basement dwellers and hang out with us. That's Friday at 8:30 during Dragoncon. But Phil, thank you so much for being here. This was great. This was
my pleasure,
ton
man.
of fun.
Oh yeah, what a romp of a film! It's always fun to hang out with you, and I look forward to giving you a big old hug at Dragoncon, man.
Same here. If you enjoy this show and you want to catch it live on our normal times, Sunday nights 8 p.m. Eastern, you can catch it at twitch.tv/TV's Travis. Find me on all the socials as TV's Travis. I also have a YouTube live stream that goes at the same time as well. So you can check it out there. And then the show comes out on Wednesdays, anywhere you get your podcasts, or at tvstravis.com. You can find the links for where to get it in any podcatcher. You can find merchandise links. I've got my silly logo on stuff. I have a wonderful Zardoz t-shirt that I can't wait. I'm bringing one of those for Drew, who was on that episode with me. We watched Zardoz, so you don't have to. That was our tagline for that episode. I'm like, Drew, I'm making you a shirt and I'm bringing it. So you can find that, and also the Patreon for this show if you want to keep not only the lights on here, but me being able to do things like Dragoncon. That's because of my patrons. That's patreon.com/WYHS. So check those out, tvstravis.com. But until next week, Cage-A-Palooza is rolling on, and I have Jonathan Bush is coming back, and we are going to talk about what was the movie we chose? The Sorcerer's Apprentice. We're going to go other end of the spectrum now. We're going to go away from Nick Cage and drama. We're going to go to some 2010 John Turteltaub directed fantasy stuff. I never saw this one, and I'm kind of excited to watch it because it just looks ridiculous. And I love that silly kind of stuff. So I can't wait. That's what's coming up next week as Cage-A-Palooza 2024 rolls on. But until then, Phil, once again, thank you. And I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks, man.
Love you, buddy.
Love you, and love all of you. Remember to enjoy your movies, and let's be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
Working? What do you mean working? I'm walking.
Yeah, just wait 1 second. Great ass!